welcome to week 6. The homework is due today. The 5-week homework that we asked everybody to do is due today. Make sure you turn it in. If by chance you don't have it with you today, make sure for sure you bring it next week. That's the only way we can give you credit for the first 5 weeks. Okay, tonight's week is root causes. I think we talked about that for the first 4 or 5 weeks, leading up to 2 weeks of root causes. Okay, now the root causes is going to lead into 2 following weeks of impulsivity. We're going to talk about impulsiveness. But tonight we're going to cover the basic of root causes and why it's so important. Now, if I have anything to say, I'm sure the other facilitators will agree, this is probably the most important week is tonight. Why I say that is because what you're about to learn tonight pertaining to root causes is going to carry you through week 7, 8, 9, and the completion of Control and Anger. So what we're going to do is the paper that you have in front of you, which is some homework and a cheat sheet in front, Mike is going to read the front part of the paper so we can kind of read along, flow with him, and he's going to ask a question or two if need be.
Exploring what root causes are. When I was 7 years old, I watched my father beat a man up for disrespecting him. When I asked my dad why he beat the man up so badly, my father said, that's how real men handle their business when somebody disrespects them. I thought about what my dad said for a minute and then asked him, what would you have done if the man who disrespected you beat you up? My dad looked at me with a blank stare in his eyes and coldly told me that I would have pulled my gun out and killed him. I saw my dad act like this on more than one occasion for as far back as I can remember. 12 years later, as I was in a line at a store, and somebody bumped into me and almost knocked me down. When the guy who bumped into me didn't apologize after I said something to him about it, I beat him up badly. When his friend came to his aid to help him, I pulled my gun out and shot him, not once, but twice. I remember looking down at the guy I had beat up and shooting him too, figuring he might be a witness. He didn't die, and he ended up being a witness. Now I'm on my way to prison doing 31 to life for murder, attempted murder, and possession of a firearm. My root causes were a distorted view of life, impulsivity, lack of self-control, unmanageable anger, and irresponsibility, to name a few. I learned from my father at a young age that it was okay to assault somebody if they disrespected you. I also learned that there was nothing wrong with packing a pistol either. Watching my father lose control and act so irresponsibly when angered rubbed off on me. And I grew up with a corrupt belief system that mirrored his. As I got older, I got worse, and my core set of values became immersed in immorality. Root causes are things that you learn or defective character traits you adopt as a part of your belief system. Such root causes are usually perceived feelings and emotions from some type of treatment or other witnessed actions by parents, caretakers, family, or society that develop into your core beliefs. All root causes are either physical, psychological, or emotional. Abandonment, lack of nurturing, neglect, deprivation, abuse, such as sexual, physical, psychological, or emotional, and domestic violence. These root causes develop into fears, phobias, anxieties, low self-esteem, etc., etc. As Jamal said, you guys, there's an exercise, a homework assignment on the back, 4 questions. After tonight, you should be armed with enough information to knock this homework assignment out without a problem. Any questions, gentlemen? With that, yes, sir. Now this is due week 8, week after next. All right, with that said, I hand it over to Jamal and let him do his thing.
Okay, what we're going to discuss tonight is obviously root causes. First and foremost, everybody in this group has root causes. First of all, root causes are not always negative. There's positive root causes. Nevertheless, what we're going to discuss tonight accompanied with a few other things, is every crime that you've committed is directly linked to your root causes. Whether you understand that fact or not, that's not important. What we're going to do is give you enough information this evening to help you understand that fact, or get you closer to understanding or uncovering that fact, that your crime or crimes is directly related to your root causes. For the lifers that's in this group, you hear the terminology, causative factors. What are the causative factors of your crime? The board may ask, do you know the causative factors of your crime? Do you know the root causes of your crime? Explain to me the insight of your crime. The insight is the root causes. The insight is the causative factors of why you committed the crime that you've committed. We're going to get into that this evening. One of the things that I'm going to do this evening that's going to help you understand it, for those who are non-lifers, this will prevent you, possibly, if you apply it, it will prevent you from committing another crime. It will also prevent you from hurting other people, whether you get caught or not. That's the importance of understanding your root causes. For those who are in this group and learn about their root causes this evening, it's going to take some exploring. Meaning what? Meaning you're not going to get all the answers tonight. What we're going to provide you with is the tools to get all the answers. It may take you years. It may take you many years. But at least you will have the tools. So with that said, what is a man with the tools that he needs to discover his root causes, who chooses not to discover his root causes? What good are those tools? Well, for that man who doesn't want to change his condition, his character, his thinking, his core beliefs, for that man who doesn't want to change those, at least you have the tools. Because there's going to come a time in your life where you're going to change them. Willingly or unwillingly, you're going to change those warped beliefs. If you choose not to, you will certainly die from those warped beliefs. It will be your demise. So the choice is yours. For those who don't want to change, the choice is yours. But what we will provide tonight is the tools for those root causes. Beginning with this, I'm going to ask the group a question. Feel free to raise your hand. I'm not going to be able to answer all hands this evening because we're on a timeline. But I'll try to answer as many as I possibly can. So just by a show of hands and a little bit of patience, we'll get somewhere. First and foremost, I'm going to ask the group, what are feelings? What are feelings?
Emotions.
They're emotions? Emotions? Beliefs. Feelings are beliefs. Feelings are anger? Hurt? Somebody said neglect? Neglect?
Perceived sensations.
Perceived sensations. Interesting answer. Rage. We're going to get into rage when we get into impulsivity. Okay, what are emotions? I heard somebody say that feelings are emotions. What are emotions?
Core beliefs.
Core beliefs. Anybody else? What are emotions? You heard the term, you're being too emotional, right? You heard the term. or you've used the term against somebody else. What are emotions?
The way you perceive things.
The way you perceive things.
Morals.
Morals.
How you act out on feelings.
How you act out on feelings. Interesting answer. Something that you care about deeply. What are feelings? You gave some answers. What are emotions? You gave some answers. Is there a difference? You say no. Who says no? Raise your hand. There's no difference between feeling and emotion. They're the same thing. Raise your hand. Few hands. Who believes they're the same thing? Who disagrees? They're not the same thing. Disagree? Disagree? What is a need?
Desire.
A desire. A belief?
Want.
Same thing?
Same thing. Want.
A want.
Necessity.
A necessity. Very interesting answer. A necessity. What is a core belief?
Moral fiber.
Moral fiber.
Continuous reaction.
A continuous reaction.
Any problem.
Something you really believe.
Something that you really believe, opposed to not really believing.
Embedded thought.
Huh?
Embedded thought.
An embedded thought. Okay. Feelings. Let me share something with you tonight. Feelings. Feelings is an emotional state or reaction, partly mental, partly physical response marked by pleasure, pain, attraction, or repulsion. That is a feeling. That is a feeling. Emotions. A state of feeling, a psychic and physical reaction as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feeling, and physiologically involving changes that prepare the body for immediate vigorous action. That's an emotion. That's a feeling. The question was, is there a difference or are they the same? That's the question. According to the definition, they're slightly different. So if I ask you the question, how are you feeling? How did that make you feel? I didn't say, how is your emotion? I asked, how did that make you feel? When you frown your face and you use your muscles, you're expressing an emotion. Anger, you learned in the first 2 weeks, is a secondary emotion. It's a secondary emotion. That means there's something called primary emotions. Needs. Needs is a lack of something required or desirable, a necessity. A need is something that is necessary. You have to have it. That's a need. Feeling and emotion are often interchangeable. That depends on how you use it. They're interchangeable. Emotion, however, is frequently considered the stronger term. You're in your feelings right now. You're working with feelings. You only tell somebody they're working with feelings or they're in their feelings right now when they're expressing themselves emotionally. especially appropriate to such response is underlined. Remember, response. Response is underlined, marked by excitement or agitation. You're either real excited or you're agitated. Right? We're talking about feeling an emotion and how they're interchangeable. Passion. Some of you guys are passionate. I'm passionate. Passion in its broader sense is intense. It's intense. Compelling emotion. It's compelling. You're compelled to act. You feel the need to act. Controlling emotion like revenge. It's a controlling emotion like revenge. Mood. What is a mood? A mood is a prevailing attitude or a feeling. A mood lasts for a long time. When you have a particular feeling and you're holding on to that feeling for a long time, you're in a particular mood. A mood is not instant. A mood is a duration. Affection. Some of us have expressed our affection before. Affection applies to feelings that are also inclinations or likings. You're inclined to something or you like something. Means what? It means you display a particular affection. Or you're affectionate with your words. A sentiment. That's your sentiment, not mine. We hear those statements. What is your sentiment on that issue? A sentiment often implies an emotion inspired by an idea. That's a sentiment. It's an emotion, but it's inspired by an idea. Feelings and emotions are positive and negative responses. Why is responses underlined? We're going to get to that. Feelings and emotions are positive and negative responses. Who in this room believes there's something called good and bad feelings? Good and bad feelings? How about good and bad emotions? Okay. Let's clarify that. Let's clarify that. There are no good and bad feelings. And there are no good and bad emotions. There's positive or negative feelings. Or positive and negative emotions. Good and bad are subjective words. Sadness is not subjective. Happiness is not subjective. They are. One's positive, one's negative. One has a positive reaction. The body has a positive reaction to a positive emotion. The body, the physical part, has a negative reaction to a negative emotion, such as sadness. Emotions, something deeply felt. That's the primary understanding that you need to have, is emotions opposed to feelings is something that is deeply felt. Why did I say pay attention to the words reaction and responses? I'll tell you why. Respond and react. Is there a difference? Okay. Is there a difference? Okay. When something happens in your life, you have a choice. You have a choice to react to it or to respond to it. When something is making you feel a particular way, you have a choice to respond to that feeling or to react to it. You have a choice.
You always respond, but respond to just how you feel. But you have a choice in reacting.
That's right. That is correct. That is correct. And that's why it's important, the difference between response and reaction. A respond, I'm going to show you something interesting, just like feelings and emotions. A respond is an answer or a reply. To show favorable reaction. To show favorable reaction is a respond. Like a respond to medication. A response to a medication shows a favorable reaction or a harmful reaction. What's happening? The body is physically responding to the medication. The body's not reacting. You're having a reaction. The feeling is a reaction. The physicalness is a reaction, allergic reaction. How do you respond? React is another definition of respond, and it's responding to a stimulus. Meaning, when you want to respond, you react to a stimulus, something that stimulates you. And what stimulates us? Our senses, right? Touch, smell, seeing, hearing. These are a stimulation. Reaction, on the other hand, to erect a return or counteracting influence. Something comes, you counteract. You're reacting. You're reacting. Something came at you, you're turning it around, you're counter-reacting. To act in opposition to a force or an influence. It's how you react. If something is influencing you, or something's coming against you in opposition, you react. It's the difference between respond. To perform, especially in an indicated way, some type of particular indicated way that we could tell how you're going to react. I can't tell how you're going to respond, but I can tell how you're going to react. It's an indicated way. Needs. Do you remember we said, what is needs? What is a need? Why is needs important? Why is any of this important? I'm going to tell you why. These needs apply to everybody in this room. Nobody's exempt. There's not a human being exempt from these needs. There's not a human being in this room exempt from any of these needs. Now, what are needs? When I say, what are your needs? You remember back in the day when your homeboy pulled up and you said, man, I'm finna go to the store, tell me what you need. Don't tell me what you want, tell me what you need. Not what you want. There's a difference. Most of us are reacting on what we want, not what we need. What are our needs in this room? We need connection, acceptance, affection. We all need affection. Belonging, humor, compassion, trust. We need choice. We need air, water, movement, rest. We need these things. We need love, respect, self-respect. We need purpose. We need fairness. We need safety. We need stability. We need support. We need to know. We need to understand. We need to be understood. We need order. We need clarity. We need food. We need empathy. We need exercise. We need sleep. We need space, shelter. challenge. We need to matter. We need protection. We need honesty, integrity, to be known, to be seen, peace, equality, consistency, companionship, communication. We need to communicate. We need inspiration. We need to be inspired. Intimacy. We all need intimacy. Freedom, sexual expression, meaning, stimulation, to be heard, and we need attention. Now, these are the things we need. These aren't all the things we need. These are only some of the things we need. Now stop. What we're going to do for root causes is we did a few weeks ago. We're all going to go back to when we was kids. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, when we were all kids, we needed these things. These were needs. Every person in this room as a child needed these things. These were needs, human needs. Interestingly enough, if something happens to you and to me, if you don't get one, something happens to you. Remember we talked about the feelings. The feelings when needs are not met. Remember, we're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Remember them needs? Now we're going to talk about feelings that we're having when those needs ain't met. Insecurities, fear, pain, anger, resentment, mistrustful, frustrated. These are feelings that you're having as a child. Impatient. You're feeling lost. You're feeling enraged. You're feeling confused. Torn, disconnected. You're feeling numb. Detached. You're feeling guilty. You're feeling ashamed. Exhausted. You're feeling grief. Lonely, anxious, sad, depressed. Overwhelmed. You're feeling vulnerable. Helpless. Yearning, troubled, despair, hopeless. Now watch this. We're talking about children. When we were children, all of us. These are the underlying causes and triggers of alcohol and substance abuse, running away from problems, in essence, wanting acceptance, you wanting family, you wanting love, you wanting protection. Let me tell you something. When you don't get these needs are not met, the human being has a feeling. When a human child doesn't feel protected, he or she feels vulnerable, insecure, sad. A lot of these feelings are feelings that stayed with us to this very day. Johnny. The first and primary reason why it's important for you to understand your root causes. If you don't understand your root causes and you don't understand where they came from, You're going to repeat the same mistakes. You're going to continuously, for the rest of your life, there are ignorant, foolish, childish, immature, painful, hurtful, saddened, ashamed 60-year-olds. That's why it's important to understand your root causes, because you will carry those needs and those feelings of the needs that were not met for the rest of your life if you don't understand your root causes. They will lead to alcoholism. They will lead to drug abuse. They will lead to crime. They'll lead to suicide. It's very important to understand your root causes that stem from these needs not being met. Some of our needs as adults are still not being met. Have you ever seen a man in prison for 25, 30 years that has not received intimacy? Have you ever seen a man in society or a teenager in society that's not being understood, that's not being heard? You're going to hear him. It might be with an AR-15, but you're going to hear him. If he's misunderstood, if he's not heard, if his needs are not met, they come out in a different way. They come out in a distorted view. Your root causes gave birth to your view, your belief system, your warped belief system, your criminal belief system. When we're talking about guys who are not having certain needs, the average gangbanger, not everybody, but the average gangbanger, if you ask him why he joined the gang, he said, because they gave me love. They treated me like family. Acceptance that I wasn't getting at home. They made me feel important. They made me feel valued. They showed me respect. They understood me. The average gangbanger, these are his answers for why he joined a gang. The average person, not everybody, but the average person who falls into a mood of disparity and it drops down to severe depression and kills themselves, they weren't valued. They felt like nobody cared. One. They felt there was nothing worth living for. Their worldview, their belief system, nothing was sacred. Nothing was worth living for. When we're talking about the feelings and we're talking about how it leads to drug abuse and alcoholism, how it leads to wanting to feel accepted, wanting to feel loved, when these needs are not met at home and the little 12-year-old girl runs away and gets found at a bus stop, the first dude to tell her that he loves her, he will provide shelter, he will give her protection, he will hear out her problems, he will make her feel good, is the first dude that'll pimp her. The first dude that could tell her that is the first dude that got her. And it goes for little boys too. These create defects and flaws in our character. We're talking about childhood. Your character is developed in childhood. Not in adulthood, in childhood. The defects and the flaws in the character that we're talking about is very, very important. Sometimes these feelings and traumatic events are repressed, suppressed, and or a silent suffering. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, the defects and the flaws in your character, we're talking about a child growing up and not having his needs met. That child who doesn't have certain particular needs met adapts particular feelings. He or she takes on certain feelings about those needs not being met. Then what happens is it develops into a character. Those feelings and the way that those feelings are expressed or internalized becomes your character. You start developing your character. What do I mean by repressed? Repressed is something that you push down from some traumatic event that happened to you in your childhood or in your youth. You push it down unbeknownst to your own consciousness. You did it out of total survival. You didn't consciously push it down. You dissociated yourself from the traumatic event. You dissociated yourself from the traumatic event to the point to where it was repressed. Meaning what? You can't even remember what happened. What happened? How did I get there? When I was a little boy who was molested by an adult, it felt like I had an out-of-body experience, is what some little boys say. It's like I was watching it happen. That is an immediate dissociation. Physical, psychologically, emotionally, it becomes repressed. When you're too young to do anything about a situation, like your daddy beating on your mama, and you're too young to do anything about it, you would rather repress it because you feel helpless. You feel helpless, so you repress it. It's a safety valve that we have as human beings. The brain goes into a particular mode and represses things that happen to us, traumatic events. Some of those things are suppressed. Some of them are suppressed, meaning you consciously buried it.
Good question. You just had an example of when you were a child and you watched, say something happens to your mom from your father, but you're helpless.
Right.
Because you're too young to do anything about it.
Correct.
You just scream out and yell.
Correct.
Is it considered repressed feelings when you're internally telling yourself that when I get older, this is what I'm going to do to you?
Well, you could suppress them. Repressed would be that you run outside and you act like nothing happened. It didn't even faze you. You went into your body and your brain and your emotions went into total survival mode, and you just went out and played like nothing happened. Like you're not really hearing your mother scream. That's repressed. Suppressed is when you bury those feelings and you bottle them up for that day when you get old enough for revenge. When you get old enough for revenge, that's suppressed. You consciously bottled it up. You consciously put it down. I'm going to remember this.
And the reason I ask is because that example there happened to me. And
Sure.
I remember saying to myself, watch when I get older. Watch what I'm going to do to you. And he was killed probably about a year after that.
Okay.
They stabbed him 16 times.
Okay.
And when I was at his funeral, I remember not even feeling any sadness, not
Okay.
feeling anything other than being happy that my mother was not going to get me down again.
Interesting. The interesting thing about that type of suppression is that when we put ourselves in those type of situations for revenge, or when I get old enough, you'll see, we're going to enact a revenge about a particular way that we're feeling about something we're experiencing. Okay? And when I get old enough, usually when young boys say that, usually, and they get older, two things happen. They become that person from resentment. They become the abuser. They beat on their wives, or kill their wives, or girlfriends, or they become the protector. Usually what happens is when it's not balanced and you get older and you don't deal with those needs and those feelings in a healthy manner, you overcompensate. So what I'm going to be is I'm going to be a domestic violence counselor. I'm going to go to school and I'm going to study all about domestic violence, and I'm going to try to save the world from people who were abused like my mother. That's overcompensating. You feel a sense of guilt. You personally feel a sense of guilt because you bottled it up. We didn't deal with a lot of our feelings in a healthy manner or our emotions in a healthy manner because we didn't know how. No one was around us to guide us or nurture us properly. We are the misfits. We are the rejects of society. The bums who became alcoholics that you walk by and they stink and they smell and they won't bathe became the rejects. The dope fiends in the alleys. The gang members. The dudes who broke into your house. The pimps. The prostitutes. These are all the rejects of people who could not properly, in a healthy manner, process these things and these traumas that were happening to them. And they get blamed for them. Nobody comes to their rescue. The answer is institutions and medication. That's the answer. When we're talking about where these character flaws come from, suppressing them, silent suffering. Take it to God. Take it in prayer. Take it to God. Take it in prayer. Don't speak on it. Don't you go to that school and tell them teachers what daddy's doing up in here. Don't you ever tell anybody what just happened to you. Silent suffering. Silent suffering. That's some of what we're doing right now here today in prison. Some of us are silently suffering. We're suffering from abandonment issues. She left you the first chance she got a chance. As soon as she heard, what? 25 to life, I'm gone. Abandonment issues, silent suffering. You mean I got a family this big and nobody cares about me? Silent suffering. He gets all the mail, I get no mail. Silent suffering. We go through that. He been to the board 2 times and got a date. I've been 19 times. I didn't get a date. Silent suffering. Nobody hears you. Nobody hears you. What happens is the trauma increases. The suppression and the repression comes back to haunt you or visit you. Now you learn how to become dishonest to survive. You learn how to be deceitful. I don't give a damn about nobody. Live for self. You become selfish. Anger. You become angry at the world. Unkind. Malicious. Hostile. Very irresponsible. It ain't a whole lot of responsibilities in prison. You can easily become irresponsible in prison. Unforgiving. I ain't never gonna forgive him. He told on me. It's 30 years later. You're still talking like that. 30 years later. The man's dead. You ain't dealt with it yet. You're in prison 30 years. He's dead. You still ain't dealt with the fact that he told on you. Or the fact that she left you and had babies by somebody else. Or the fact that your responsibility and your actions is what caused your mom or your dad to have a stroke. You're not even accepting that. Not yet. Controlling. They're controlling me, I'm going to control somebody else. I need somebody in my life that I could control. I need a soft woman. I need a woman who doesn't resist. So I can control her. I need a little homie. I'm not the little homie no more, I'm the big homie. I need somebody to control. I need a weak celly with a lot of money. The truth. Spiteful, manipulative. Character defects. You're a manipulator, man. You just ain't got caught yet. You just ain't got caught. You're manipulating your way out of everything. Matter of fact, when the correctional sergeant said, you know what, today's your lucky day. Today's your lucky day and I'm gonna drop this 115. Or the lieutenant says, I'm gonna grant your 602. Today is your lucky day. You go back and you tell your homeboys that your macking did that. Or your skills did that. You give no consideration to his compassion. You give no consideration to his judgment. You take on all the defects and claim them as a badge of honor. If you are so manipulative to everybody around you, you're manipulative to your homeboys. You're manipulating them. And the only reason you got love for them is because they got the sack. The only reason you got love for them is because they got something you want or something you need. Still need at 50. He's only cool because he got something you need at 50. You run with him because he got something you need at 50. You only call these family members who supply your needs, and never send these family members who you still are spiteful towards, you still have not forgiven. You don't send them a birthday card. And the first thing come out of your mouth is they don't send me nothing. They forgot about me, I'm gonna forget about them. You ain't dealt with this. You become lazy, you become arrogant, lack of self-control, can't control yourself. The list goes on and on. We're just talking about character flaws, where they come from. Lifestyle addiction, warped belief system. I'm not going to say everybody in the room has a warped belief system, but I done changed my belief system and warped it many, many times over my life. Sometimes it got worse. Sometimes I took things out of it and added other things to it. Sometimes I grew out of certain belief systems that I no longer believe in, and I picked up other ones. The defects and flaws in our character become our addiction. They become our habits. They become our lifestyle. And it turns into a lifestyle addiction. It turns into a lifestyle addiction. You was either banging, you was either stealing, you was either pimping, you was either using drugs, you was doing something that became a lifestyle addiction. Now what happens is your character defects becomes your character defect. That is who you are. Hey, check this out. Check this out, bro. Don't believe anything he says. The dude's a known liar. The dude can't keep his word. Hey, dude right there, he don't pay his debts. Hey, dude right there told on everybody at the last joint. Hey, dude right there, everything we're pointing out about your character, your habits, your addictions, is how people judge you. That's how people perceive you. You know why? Because now it became a lifestyle. Became a lifestyle. You do it 7 days a week now. 7 days a week. These core beliefs, manners, they're watching you when you don't think they're watching you. All right? They're watching you, man. When you don't think people are watching you, they're watching you. When you don't think officers are watching you, they're watching you. When you don't think partners are watching you, they're watching you. When you don't think the enemy's watching you, he's watching you. And he's watching your manners. He's watching your manners. He's watching everything you do. Habits, obsessions, compulsions. They became corrupt, flawed, criminal, antisocial, or distorted. The only reason they label everybody in this room as antisocial, and people say, I'm not antisocial, I get along with everybody. For your edification purposes, that's not antisocial. That's not what it means. If you haven't picked up a psychology book and understood why the psychologists are putting labels on you, you need to look up the definition of the label. What did he or she just label me as? I get along with everybody. I'm not antisocial. Antisocial belief system is when you can't get along with the norms of society. Antisocial is when you break rules. Every 115 is antisocial. Did you know that? You should know that. Every 115 is antisocial. You can't follow the rules. You can't follow the regulations. If you get two 115s, or you get a very serious 115, then the psychologist says his antisocial disorder has increased. What do you mean it increased? He's dangerous. And what they mean by that is if you can't follow rules in a confined environment, you're not going to follow rules in an unconfined environment. That's what it means. Your antisocial belief system has now become criminal. It has now become distorted because only you think you're getting away. You're the only one in the room that thinks that. If anybody in here has been under an investigation, you should know that you weren't getting away. They was just writing everything down. Then they said, okay, it's time. Let's go read off everything he's been doing and tell him about it. Because he really thought he was getting away with it. Let's show him the pictures. Sometimes I think men in prison think these cameras are here for their own entertainment. For real. Sometimes they think that those phones, from unit to unit, from station to station, is just for staff. Oh, they're just talking about staff stuff. They're watching you. And guess how they're watching you? They're watching your habits. He usually don't go over there. What are they doing over there? He don't go over there. There's 4 of them. There's 4 of them over there. Right? Turn the mic up a little louder. Put the zoom on a little deeper. What are they doing? They're watching your habits, your manners. It's warped. It's distorted. There ain't nothing wrong with that if you want to stick with it. All I'm saying is there's a consequence. There's nothing wrong if you want to stick with it. Just accept the consequence. Don't cry over spilled milk. You will inevitably get caught. You're going to get caught. If you get away and you get away and you get away and you get away and you don't get caught, your belief system emboldens and it gets bigger. Now you're going to hurt somebody. Now you're going to get caught in high noon. I don't even care now. What do you mean you don't care? I'm going to blast him on the yard in front of everybody over that debt. Ain't nobody ever not paid me my debts. You got emboldened. The belief system got thicker. It's going to come out one way or another if you don't visit it. These natural progressions become our lifestyle. What natural progressions? Habits, compulsions, manners, character defects, flaws. They become our lifestyle. This is very important. Who were you born to be is the question. Remember that child that we was talking about. I was born to be loved. I was born to be cared for, nurtured, protected. I was born to be accepted, treated fair, valued, hopeful, acknowledged. I was born to be recognized and listened to. Pre-verbal needs are vitally important. Pre-verbal needs are vitally important. I'll share with you tonight something that may or may not, you may or may not have heard this before, but let me tell you tonight. There were things that happened to you when you was a baby. A baby who couldn't talk. That's what pre-verbal means. 1 year old, 2 years old, sometimes up to 3. There were things that happened to you as a baby. You were either neglected in the crib, you were either swatted or spanked, you were either pushed or shoved, you were either given extremely hot milk or no milk at all, you was given Similac or sugar water. There were things that happened to you in a pre-verbal stage. You smelled smoke. You smelled weed. You heard screams. You heard fights. There were things that happened to you in pre-verbal stage that your brain will never forget. It records it. The difference is you can't speak about it. You're not old enough to form words yet. That's called emotional memory. right? It's stored in our hippocampus. Everything that we have ever processed emotionally in our life is recorded in our hippocampus. And our hippocampus is a storage bit that doesn't erase nothing. It just sits there. And it comes out when needed. That's the pre-verbal stage of our lives. Any loss of these needs will often have a negative impact. These needs that you were born to be. You was born to have these needs met. Any loss of them will have a negative impact on this. This camera right here, it doesn't miss nothing. As long as you got eyes and ears. As long as you got a tongue and nostrils, it don't miss nothing. Not this camera. The impact that I'm talking about is traumatic. It's trauma. It's trauma. You ever dropped a baby? It could die. If you drop a baby, it could die. So you handle it fragile. You don't take it out into the cold climate. You put a blanket around it. You hold the head up. You try not to yell at it. You try not to bring it around smoke. You have to nurture that child, that baby. Anything that is the opposite of that is called trauma. The brain records trauma in all of our lives. What we've seen as kids that we were not supposed to see is called trauma. What we heard as children that we were not supposed to hear is trauma. It's not cool to put Jack Daniels in a bottle or on the nipple of the bottle. It's not cool. Some parents think it's cool. The impact and the trauma that I'm talking about is the abuse, the physical, the sexual, the mental, and the emotional abuse. Neglect, rejection, abandonment, and impaired judgment. We are not functioning on all cylinders. If you use drugs before in your life, especially the harder drugs, you know you are not functioning on all cylinders. You know what Sherm does. You know what Coke does. You know what meth does. You know what alcohol does. You are not functioning on all cylinders. Now do it over years. That's not a fancy commercial when they got the eggs frying in the pan and say this is your brain on drugs. That's not some fancy commercial to get you to stop using drugs. That's called a psychological reaction to the drugs. An impairment to the brain. These are the creation of feelings. What is? The trauma. The trauma. Nature and nurture. The predisposition and the disposition. What is predisposition? I'll give you a little example. The mother that smokes while she's pregnant. I sold drugs. I don't know about you, but I sold crack to pregnant women. I don't know about you. But the pregnant woman who smokes crack, that's called predisposition. It's going to have an effect on that child. Call them crack babies. And that's not a fancy term. They're called crack babies. You ever see a baby in the incubator addicted to narcotics in the hospital? If you ain't seen it, no, it does exist. They got to wean them off of morphine. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks old. It does exist. Alcohol, tobacco. How about them cool-ass dads that like to sock and kick their pregnant old ladies? It happens. There is a delicate interplay between them. We're talking about the predisposition and the disposition. Nature and nurture. We've all heard it. Often there is a mutual or reciprocal action or influence. Predisposition has an influence on the disposition of who you are, your disposition. It's a reaction. It reciprocates back to your genes. Your genes are predisposition. Predisposition is what color eyes you're going to have, how tall you're going to grow, what color skin you're going to have, whether you're prone to diabetes or not, whether you're prone to a heart disease or not. That's called predisposition. Genetics. Genetics. Nature, the inherent quality or basic constitution of a person. Keyword, inherent. Keyword, inherent is nature. It's something you inherited. Nurture is the influences that modify the expression of an individual's heredity. So there it is again, what you inherited. Nurturing can bring it out. It can bring it out, or it can suppress it, or it can hold it at bay, or it can alter it. I.e. genetics. The expression of the individual's hereditary is to promote the growth and development or the progress of it. Do we bring it into full potential or do we hinder it? Right? Do you give your little baby boy or baby girl all the sugar, all the candy, all the greasy foods? You see what they look like. You see what they look like. I got a niece that's this damn round. That's 4 years old. Didn't come out the womb like that, but the mama's that big. And if you want to feed your little baby the same food you've been eating to get that big, what you think gonna happen to the little baby? Who's prone to obesity? America has that bad, obesity. So what happens? We take that and we pass it on to the next generation. That becomes heredity. Now, you can eat healthy and exercise and prevent it, or you can just eat whatever you want and progress it. Predisposition, we talked about earlier. To incline in advance, make susceptible. The genetics or the temperament. They say all of us are born with a particular temperament. Temperament is not something you can learn. Babies are either agitated, easily irritated, or easily joyful. They're born like that. It's called a temperament. The temperament is characteristic or habitual inclination or a mode of the emotional response. When they laugh a lot or they cry a lot. That baby cries a lot. Touch the baby, it cries. Feed the baby, it cries. The crying is an emotional response. The disposition is the complex of especially mental and emotional qualities that distinguish an individual. That's who you are. Your disposition is who you are. All the traits you learn. The root causes, core beliefs, and their effects. Where do our core beliefs come from? Well, we just talked about it. They come from influence. People who influence you or environment that influences you is called inspiration. Experience. Things that you've experienced in your life, you interpreted. Interpretation. Things that you were taught is called indoctrination. Fernando.
Will understanding my root causes help with my anger?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of controlling anger philosophies out there. Some have worked, some haven't worked. Some have worked, some haven't worked. Some people believe punching a bag controls their anger. And it proved not to work. That's not how you control anger, by going out punching the bag. That's how you suppress anger. That's how you tolerate anger. That's not how you control it. Understanding your root causes will certainly assist you in your anger issues. The ones who have anger issues. Some of us a little bit more than others. When I'm talking about the core beliefs, where do they come from? And I said influence, experience, or they were taught, or the lack of. Well, you weren't taught. What didn't influence you? Or what you never experienced? Your core belief can be very naive. You've met naive people. You've met gullible people before because they didn't experience certain things.
You said right now punching the bag would be suppressing your anger. Wouldn't that be considered controlling your anger also? Or
No. No. You can't control your anger. Another myth. It's not something to control. You're either going to deal with it healthy or unhealthy. A lot of people think controlling is you get a grip on it. I got it. I got it. Well, without dealing with the reasons why you're angry, which we'll get in a couple weeks from now. Okay, validation or invalidation. Representation or estimation. What does that mean? Everything is not automatically a validation or an invalidation. Not everything. Some things just are. There isn't an existing reference point to validate or invalidate. Some things are just what they are. Right? But if you think you're hard, and I take you around the corner and show you how to bust a pistol for the first time in your life and tell you you're hard, I validate it. I validate your belief that you're hard. Now you got 2 or 3 or 4 people validating that belief. If I told you were dumb, and your mama told you was dumb, and the preacher told you was dumb, and your teacher told you was dumb, they validated that belief. I must be dumb. Or invalidation. Don't nobody approve? Nobody approves? That's invalidation. Nobody is approving. Judgment, value, or opinion. Why is that important? We're talking about your core beliefs here. The core is a source or a point of origin. It has to start from somewhere. As an influence, a pressure, or effect. The core, it has a beginning. It starts from somewhere. What is the objective opposite of everything we discussed tonight? What's the objective opposite? Where are we trying to get? Feelings when our needs are met. We need to deal with those needs. The 50-year-old, the 25-year-old, the 60-year-old, the 42-year-old, he needs to go back and holler at that 4-year-old boy or that 5-year-old boy and act like an adult and get his needs met. And tell him how it felt. And tell him it's not his fault. It's the world he was born into. It was the family that he was born into. It was the poverty or the wealth, the block, the street, the hood, the state, the country that he was born into, the religion, the culture, the belief systems of his parents that he was born into, the school he went to, the things that happened to him, the things that he never got, the things he shouldn't have seen, the things that shouldn't have happened to him. You need to go back and holler at that little boy, or he's going to come out. He's going to come out. He's coming out today. Many of us have not dealt with this. You're acting like a sucker, man. You're acting like a chump, man. You're acting like a broad, man. You're acting like a girl, man. You're acting like a punk, man. You're acting like an inmate and not a convict, man. We got all these things that you're acting like because needs haven't been met. But the one thing we need to act like is a mature man who has feelings, emotions, and needs. And he knows how to express his feelings, express his emotions, and ain't nothing soft about a man expressing his emotions. What's soft is the man who has not dealt with his needs and has not learned how to express his emotions. That's the soft dude. That's the soft dude. That when he does something tragic or traumatizes another human being and he gets put in a cop car, he cries. And he whines. And he gets put in a hole. And he turns into the little girl. The one who ain't dealt with his needs. Ain't nothing wrong with expressing your emotions and feelings. It's manly. And don't get it twisted. Women are attracted to men who can express their feelings. Don't get it twisted. Women don't like men who express their feelings through their anger or their hurtful words or their 5-year-old tantrums. They're looking for a mama, not a wife. When we deal with these needs, the adult man goes back and deals with that child, affectionate, friendly, loving. He's engaged. He's curious. He's interested. He's involved. He's hopeful. He's stimulated. He's optimistic. He's confident. He's proud. He's safe. He's excited. He's passionate. He's vibrant. He's eager. He's grateful. He's inspired, joyful, elated, peaceful, centered, fulfilled, satisfied, renewed, revived. These are the healthy beliefs, reinforced views, and pro-social values that we need to get to be the men that we were supposed to be as little boys to our families and to our loved ones and to our society. To be the healthy man. To be part of the solution to what's going on out there that put you in here. We will always have needs that need to be met, gentlemen. Hopefully we got something out of tonight. We will review this next week. Thank you very much.